All right, let's get straight into our first topic then. And should Shamima Begum be allowed to return to Britain? We're taking your calls on this straight away. 0207 862 2222 is that number again. Now, the 25-year-old travelled to Syria as a schoolgirl to join Islamic State back in 2015 and has spent the last 5 years in a detention camp in the country. Now, she launched numerous legal campaigns in order to return to the UK, but has lost and had her citizenship revoked because of the threat she posed to the British public. But now Syrian leader Bashar al-Assad has been overthrown by rebels. There are fears that she could face increased danger, and it's reported that if her detention camp is shut down, it could allow her to make a new appeal to come back. This is according to her lawyer. There's an argument to say that the government's decision to deprive her of her British citizenship would put her at a much greater risk than any danger she may pose to national security. Geoff, where do you stand on this one?
Well, look, first up, there's no part of me that actively wants her to come back. You know, I have some sympathy for the fact that she was a schoolgirl when she took this decision. However, I would say that at 15, I knew right from wrong. I'd been raised to a point where I wouldn't have taken a decision as extreme as that. But she was born here, you know, she was raised here as well. She is, I think, our problem. Now, I understand that there are certain circumstances where citizenship is revoked from people that pose a genuine threat. I would ask the question of, do this government genuinely think she still poses that threat? What I worry about, I mean, government's been outstripped this, worries me on one level. Another concern is that she's a political football in some ways. It would be politically difficult to allow her to come back. Obviously, the right-wing press would grab hold of it and make hay with it. And I just wonder if that's part of the thinking in this, whether it's a truly objective decision to not allow her back.
But you think we should allow her back, that she's our problem?
I don't think, honestly, at this point, that she poses the kind of threat. If you look at some of the people that have their citizenship revoked, I'm not sure that she sort of satisfies that threshold.
Well, if we look back to why she went over there in the first place, she was 15. Some people say she was groomed, so we're looking at potentially a victim of grooming sitting in a detention centre in Syria. If that camp is also opened up, overthrown, closed down, then her life is at risk over there.
I don't think she should come back, firstly. I think that it was the right decision to take her citizenship away from her. That's difficult for me to say, but I don't think she should come back. And she needn't be stateless. She could go to Bangladesh. She's quite eligible to apply to go.
She doesn't know anyone there. She's never lived there.
I totally get that, but she has got somewhere she can go. I don't think she's Britain's problem. I think she was Britain's problem. She's no longer Britain's problem because she's not a British citizen. And, you know, let's not forget there are other people out there who are less able to articulate or have not had the opportunity to articulate and put in legal cases that this young lady's had. She's had plenty of opportunity and she's been denied to come back at every... And, you know, there's information there that we won't be party to. You know, the stuff that obviously that we don't know about, which is preventing her, she's classed as national security. And let's not forget, she made some really, really horrendous threats against British individuals when she went there. She made a conscious decision to go.
She may have 15.
Yeah, but I think that she would have at that time. She walked into that with her eyes wide open and took others with her. You know, it was a huge outcry when she went, and you know, with the photographs of her at the airport, and I remember vividly thinking, oh my God, you know, where are these girls gone? And then when we discovered where she'd gone, I think she's gone there. She may have been radicalised, but I don't think she was groomed. But
you agree to a sense that it would be awkward for this Labour Party that are desperately trying to not seem soft on these issues?
This is a legal issue. This is up to the courts to decide. The High Court decided not that long ago that she shouldn't be coming back.
So you don't think that they're making an example of her then? Or you think that they are and they should make an example of her? I think her legal team are using this opportunity as a way of bringing the story back into focus. But, you know, we should be looking at all the cases then, not just the one. There are other people who were trafficked. Well, there are children there. I'm sure we would be looking at all the other cases.
I'd be happy to.
The other cases are appealing too. It's just Shamima Begum is the one that has made the headlines and the one that we talk about. So I suppose there's an argument to say that whatever happens, it will set a precedent for the others there.
Every case will be different. Every case will be different.
I just don't know, if you look at some of the other people that have had this citizenship revoked and the kind of threat that they pose, I'm just not sure that she satisfies that threshold. I think, look, this has been an issue now for successive governments. I get why it's thorny, because they know what the headlines would be the following day. You know, you talk about the legal challenge was about whether or not it was the government's right. I'm not sure the courts approved of the decision itself. It was about whether or not the government, the British sort of Home Office had the right to make that decision. So it's a tricky one. I would imagine that most of the people who say, as I do, that, you know, she's our problem, wouldn't feel comfortable or good about it. But it comes down to a kind of a sort of a political decision rather than an emotional one. And
we set a precedent. If we do allow her to come back, there will be others who will be as dangerous, if not more dangerous, and the precedent is set.
If they are in fact dangerous, then wouldn't it be better to have those individuals, Shamima Begum and the others, in this country where they can be more closely monitored? Because leaving them in a situation in Syria, which is fast moving, and we don't know who's going to take over, and it leaves a sort of vacuum for other potentially terrorist organisations to take hold. Wouldn't she be better here where we could watch her closely?
But how closely would we be watching her? We don't know what the circumstances would be. If she comes back, she's going to come back into custody. She's going to come back into this country, into prison, where she is in a controlled environment. We don't know. So as it stands, I don't believe she should come back. But she can go to Bangladesh, just to reiterate that there is an avenue for her.
Well, the argument is, Geoff, if she comes back here, the likelihood is she'll be in prison. The likelihood is she'll go to court and she will spend the rest of her days in prison. Is it fair to make the taxpayer pay for that?
No one, as I say, no one wants to pay that money, but that is the process that I think should happen. You know, I'll probably, if people, you know, bring her back here, but if she still poses that threat and it can be proved in a court of law, then we take the appropriate legal action to make sure she can't be a threat.
The other reason potentially to bring her back, Carolyn, would be that she's a great source of information, and we might be able to use her for that information. She may work to our benefit, if that makes sense.
She may not. We don't know. And I don't think that we should be taking that risk. We have intelligence services who are professional and are working to establish a proper network. And like you said, we don't know what's going to happen there. But, I mean, she cannot be our last hope of getting good information about a different regime.
She would give us a better insight as to...
I don't believe she would.
Islamic State. She would... Well, she lived there. She lived with them. She was married to an IS fighter, so she has an insight that our services don't have, and would probably
No, I don't believe that's a good enough reason to have her back.
I think it's an emotional one for a lot of people, but should these decisions be made on an emotional basis?
No, I don't think they should. But we can never fully work out why stories become so big. But Shamima Begum is probably a name that most people in the UK would be aware of. And when you have somebody that has that much recognition and sort of awareness, for want of a better word, it does make it a politically thorny issue. And it's just my judgment here that this current government, with their issues, you know, with seeming potentially soft to the right-wing press and on issues that are not wanting to seem soft on immigration, they won't go near it with a barge pole. But that will be partly, I think, because of a political calculation.
All right. Dorothy from Edinburgh, what do you think? Should we allow Shamima Begum back now that potentially she's in danger in Syria?
Well, I think the point I would like to make is that young girl, and she was young, has actually lost 3 babies. And I think that's punishment enough. And I think she should be allowed to come back and have a new life and a new start and maybe a family of her own.
So you don't think she should go through the court systems? You don't think she'll end up in prison if she does come back?
I think she's been through enough. I really do.
Carolyn, she's been through enough.
I don't think what she's been through is relevant to the original crime. She went out there to become part of the ISIS.
Well, I suppose that starts from the point of why did she go out there in the first place? Did she go out there because she was radicalised, because she was groomed, because she genuinely thought it was a good idea and still has affiliations to Islamic State? Those are actually answers that nobody really knows the answer to. But if you come from the perspective that she was groomed at the age of 15, she was taken into essentially a cult-like group, and she was married off at a very young age to an individual, and she has lost 3 babies, you start to see her in the eyes of a victim rather than a perpetrator.
But I think that's another emotional argument. I can see that the argument for not bringing her back is emotional, but equally the experience that she had there is besides the point. That might sound harsh, but the point is simply a legal one here. Does she satisfy the threshold for threat? I'm not sure she does anymore.
Dorothy, thank you very much for your call. Amanda from Lancashire, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, pretty much agree with your last caller, Dorothy. I do think she was groomed. She was radicalised. She was a teenager. Young women are very vulnerable around that age, and we wouldn't punish other people, young ladies, for being groomed. I think maybe she should spend some time in prison or even a psychiatric unit to check on her
mental health. I mean, certainly it's probably impacted her mental health. I think people might struggle with the sympathy for Shamima Begum because of the first interview that we saw her in, where she seemed to demonstrate very little empathy. And actually the journalist that had the best relationship with her and got the best access to her has kind of turned his back on her a little bit, saying that she did lack empathy, and he doesn't really believe that she's completely had a 180 on her situation.
I think what we've got to remember as well, she was trained by ISIS. They're trained very much along the lines of like the SAS. So they will have got her into some kind of mental state that for a long while she will be like that. And I do think she needs some help. I do think she should be able to come back and at least get that help and then go from there.
But Amanda, there are other British citizens in that camp. Does that mean that we have to take them all back? Will we be opening our arms to these individuals to come back just to make sure they're safe regardless of what they did to affect the safety of our country in the past?
Well, if it's something they've done wrong and they have to serve time, then we take prisoners back from other countries that have done wrong, and we send people back to their countries to serve time as well. So
that's a fair point. I'll put that to Carolyn. That's the way the world works. We send criminals back sometimes if they have committed heinous crimes here to serve their time over there, and we take criminals back who have committed crimes.
And you have to have an extradition treaty. But she's not a British citizen, so if she's going to go back anywhere, she needs to go back to Bangladesh.
Amanda, she'll go back to Bangladesh. Does that seem reasonable to you?
No, she wasn't born there. She was born here. She's British.
But she could have citizenship in Bangladesh.
Potentially, but they've said no, haven't they?
I think they actually did say no. And if they say no, because I know the Netherlands, her husband was from the Netherlands, and so there was a chance that they might take her, and they said not a chance.
That tells the story then.
And I don't think Bangladesh has agreed to it either. I think you're right on that. We're just checking in the behind the scenes in the gallery. But in that case, we have kind of made her stateless.
She is stateless.
How can somebody be stateless? I don't understand that. That doesn't.
Well, no other. So Bangladesh does say no. So the Netherlands have said no. Bangladesh has said no, and we're now saying no. We have made her stateless, and we're not really allowed to do that.
Well, I still think that she's not our problem anymore.
Okay, Ben from South Wales, what's your thoughts?
Hi, yeah. I'm sorry, is it Carolyn Harris,
Carolyn,
Labour woman? Yeah, she keeps saying that she's not our problem anymore, but the problem is that's only because we made her not our problem anymore. I kind of also think, to be honest, that if we regard in law a 15-year-old as being a child, a minor, not able to consent to, well, anything really, How can we possibly justify this when it's a 15-year-old girl who's been groomed and trafficked?
I think that is part of the issue here of somebody being held to different legal standards than that which we normally apply to people of that age. You just have to separate the emotional, the moral, and it comes down to a legal, clear-headed decision. And I don't think that this is an ongoing clear. I understand at the time it was happening, there were so many fears about Islamic State. I do think that, you know, let's get her back in, let's interrogate her. If she's a risk, let's incarcerate her in this country.
OK. Well, Ben, thank you very much for your call. Thanks for all your calls on that.